Well, it's really a privilege to be here with you because you're just going to launch your 9th studio album, which is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
On the 27th.
That's right.
And you've been around for 27 years. Is this like an anniversary? Is this a special thing? 27?
It's not a numeric game. I think we kind of look at it as we have a kind of 25-year anniversary coming up. But it all depends, where you start counting from. We probably have been together for 27 years.
I haven't looked at it. That means,
Yeah, well, 83. Makes sense.
All those years, it's gone too quickly.
Well, we've been together for longer than that then. So, like I said, I tend to get difficult.
You're thinking and thinking of angles.
I never do such things.
I'm sure you do. Which
it's a dirty lie.
There is this rumour that you actually chose your producer or something because he had a Space Invaders machine. Is that true?
It's.
Or is it just one of these modern myths?
That was the first studio, I think, when we... wasn't it?
Well, I think it's one of those kind of myths we helped promote early on in our career that kind of stuck with us. But the fact is not always more interesting, but in this case, I can give it to you anyway, it's so long ago. The facts are that we chose the studio because of its array of synthesizers and studio equipment. And it was all listed in the Melody Maker. And at the bottom of that list, it said, and the Space Invader machine. So that was kind of like an added attraction. Yeah. I was, before, in the kind of weeks and months and, before AHA got on our way towards what eventually became fame, the first few kind of months in London, I would spend spare change going into these kind of games, halls, and add the name AHA eventually to the top of all the lists of Defenders and Space Invaders across London.
Remember that.
I wonder if there are any left. Could we go into some dark corner in London and find some?
And find me. I'm sure.
So I felt responsible for being for adding AHA at the bottom of the same list, so that we were kind of engulfing the list.
I was quite good.
Do you still play computer stuff, or is that kind of gone now?
It's all gone, and sadly the knack has left me. But I have quite recently purchased an original Space Invader machine, just to be a real pop star and kind of. But my kids, kind of, when they started beating me in the kind of more advanced PlayStation and all those kind of games, I lost interest. I can't lose and keep an interest up for long.
Okay, so that's that. Solar power I was coming to, because in my mind somewhere I had the thought that you guys had sponsored something with solar power back in the 80s, and I could not find it in all my research, and I thought maybe they'd gone quiet.
We imported a solar car to Norway and that's about 20. When was that? 87.
See, I'm showing my age.
I think 80. No, it was in 89. I think. Because there were no incentives to drive cars like that in Norway, and so we, Magne and I, together with an expert on solar energy and Bellona, which is I'd say the most important environmental group in Norway, and we're very much active back then as well. We imported this car and started driving it. Without paying taxes, through the toll booths,
as a kind of a civil disobedience, and getting lots of press because of it.
Yeah, parking it illegally, or rather parking it without paying for it, because we wanted to drive through the message that there should be big incentives for cars like that.
And not only that, though, the solar power. I think didn't we sponsor a certain amount of solar cookers for this green belt movement project in Africa?
Yeah, there's been odd bits, and there's been other things too.
I seem to remember there were quite a few thousand of those cookers.
Yeah, it was just one of those things that I hadn't seen when I was looking back for the whole nostalgia thing. I thought, I'll ask that. And Morten, you were scratching your head there, and I noticed the wristbands. That was a question that came to me. Do they still wear wristbands?
Well, not still, but I started
thinking. They're not the same ones,
there was this stylist that gave them to me. He said, "You look good with these," and she put them on, and I.
But it's interesting because Morten's environmental commitment to environmental issues at one point in time, it was being there was a lot of focus on it, and as we all know, any kind of artist who tries to direct people's attention to good causes, that's like putting your head on the chopping block. You kind of, there's a very, very tricky thing to do.
Fine balance.
But I think the point with, you've always been interested in alternative energies, and even just recently, a few months ago, you were speaking at some solar power conference or attending.
Yeah. It wasn't a solar power conference. That was actually, in fact, electric vehicle symposium, which was held in Stavanger in Norway.
Everything
very
happens
big,
in Stavanger, doesn't it? So the engineers
which is
and
the
oil capital
It's the oil
of
capital of Norway.
Western.
So this was kind of the alternative route, and it was a brilliant symposium, actually, the best they've had, with a lot of notable figures attending. So good one, actually.
So still something close to your heart.
Well, what happened? Press was then, doing some focus on this, because in Norway there is that incentive now, because a few years after they impounded the vehicle and sold it at an auction. It was given back to Bellona. They kept driving it in the same way, and we kind of kept it up. And in the end, it resulted in a change,
a political
change that means that these cars are met with the best incentives today. I think when it comes to
today, you can't drive it through the toll booths without paying, and you can drive in the taxi lane. You can
import it without paying the heavy taxes that we have to pay in Norway for cars. So it means that, you pay in Norway, you pay more than 100% tax on cars. It's like 130 odd percent. So it means a lot, actually.
Take the street car of a street price of a UK car and add 130%, and that's what we pay.
Wow. Well, this is what I love about you guys, because you're creative in such a rounded way. We see you as a Ha, which is brilliant, and we love the music, and you're the soundtrack for so many years and all sorts of things that you've done. But it goes beyond that, your creativity. Mags, you're doodling there, but I know that you're an artist as well.
I have worked parallel since my first exhibition was in 1989, and I've since kind of dedicated approximately half my time to visual art. Having said that, I have about twice the amount of time in me than most people do, so I can sort of start the day.
You don't sleep, Mags.
I start the day on European time, and then I restart it when America wakes up, and I keep going around. So I know I get
forever, or just since touring and things.
No, I used to be like one of the world's best sleepers, and I think I've slept enough in my youth for my whole life. So I kind of
he tends to sleep through interviews, and then
I wake up for the important bits, but. No, I have my fair share of kind of energy, and I've spent it on music and art, basically.
Creative energy. I was talking to someone recently, and they.
I wouldn't judge it. I wouldn't judge it by the doodling here, though, because that's more like mental renovation.
But Magne, you're doing very well, though, as an artist as well.
Yeah, I mean, for some parts of my life, obviously, the fame and the money and the music that the music gave me a unique starting point. I had to be careful not to be kind of seen as a celebrity painter, and I had to kind of say no to most of the things that were offered me. B, I had a financial security, so I could work on a professional level from word go. And I could start project on my own. I didn't need a gallerist or some guy coming in and funding my projects. I could do it on my own. And at some points in my life, the music was funding the art, but it's at certain years over the last 10, 15 years, the art has funded the music. So it's been a privileged position to be in.
So you're always in one kind of studio or another then?
Yeah, it's a little bit like crop rotation, I find. It's the way to keep the earth from being depleted.
That's what I was going to ask. How do you keep your creative juices going? But if you've got all these different things, what about for you, Morten? Do you draw? Do you sketch? Do you doodle?
I do have a lot of it in me, actually, but I have not been, and contrary to Magne, I have not been working it out in a way. I've not, I've got it just there, and it's
there
and
ready.
it's in a way been enough for me just to know what is there. And lately, I've become more and more impatient with that and with myself. If I want to actually, there's something else to commit to it and actually do it. And so I think that there is a.
It's not enough to go to your grave saying that I had a lot of potential.
No.
I just never.
No. No. So I have actually started. I have started doing things.
But you do so much, and going back through the career, you've done Bond movie theme tunes. You hosted Eurovision, Morten, and they're all kind of things that I know people can poo-poo Eurovision, but it's all kind of they're milestone
Well, I do it myself.
things.
I do it myself.
They're milestone things.
For me. It was a good. It was a very good exercise in a way. It was a good experience. Very different to what I normally do in show business, you could say. So it was a healthy thing for me to do. It's not something I wouldn't really be interested in doing it one more time like that. Not the Eurovision, certainly, but it was like the most unthinkable thing for me to take part in, and I kind of like the idea of doing it in spite of that.
I think what you're hinting at is that we've done so many things that from the outside seems like the opportunity of a lifetime, and they become run of the mill? How do we relate?
I wasn't saying that. I think because I'm a creative myself, I think, I'll have a go at that, and just keep having a go at different things and keep moving on, so you don't get stale.
No, we have been lucky and privileged, as I said, to experience many unique things through our lives. I'm not sure where I've been going with this. I had a thought, I had an idea, but I think that the thing is that the one thing that doesn't leave you is the kind of restlessness and feeling that you haven't really done that much. I still feel that. I still feel like I'm just starting out.
It's interesting because as I was coming up on the train, because I've come from the countryside, I was coming up on the train and I was listening to your first album, and you were dreaming yourself a life, myself a life, and then in this latest album, life is a dream you wake up to, and I just thought it was kind of like bookends to do different stuff. It really hit me.
Yes, I'm particularly happy with that line. Life is the dream that you wake up to.
You come up with great lines, and you're Norwegian. You speak English better than what I do. So.
I doubt it, but we have one advantage, and that is that repetition dulls, and sometimes you lose fascination and interest because you know things too well. I think most people find that in their marriage or in their lives, that something you're exposed to always is something that you take for granted. And I think one of our advantages is that we're guests in the English language, and I'm really passionate about English, and I kind of got that from my mother being an English teacher, but I also got it from my high school teacher, who was such a Teutonic, and he was like a dictator almost in the way that he taught English, and it made me appreciate the precision of the language and the possibilities. And I every time I read a book, I only read in English, even Norwegian authors these days, ironically. But it's because I'm always looking out for linguistic finer points, and I'm always making notes and have this kind of advanced way of making donkey's ears on the, is that what you call it?
I see what you mean. So you bend down the page.
You're bending down the page and both
Origami
ways, and to point to where. So every time I'm finished with a book, I have to reread all these pages and write down the passages and write down the.
Well, another line from a song is that where you're doing crosswords, words go up, words come down, forwards,
backwards,
whatever, twisting round. And I think that's really, for me, that sums up a lot of the lyrics and things.
That's creative. One of Paul's very early and genius lines. That's one of the, and I think there's probably a slight difference in the way that we write lyrics, the three of us. Obviously, Paul has been the main lyrical writer for a.ha, but over the last few years, we've kind of, Morten and I have also kind of completed our creative cycle by writing lyrics as well. And I think, some of that goes into the melting pot and affects everything else.
So 27 years together, that affects what you're creating now, and it's just all a journey and a process.
I met Graham Nash a few years ago, and it was really great to meet him. There's an artist who's been around the block many times, and he's been successful in different ways, in different band setups and all that, on a massive scale. And I don't know how old he is, but he's a lot older than me. And he was like a kid. He was showing me some new songs. He played some songs to me, and he was like a boy, And there were some really nice gems there. And it was a moment for me, because I realized that there is no time limit to any of this at all. And I hadn't expected it, to see it from that angle, I suppose. Because I was used to, at that point, having been around for so long myself, and to meet someone who's really been around for long, and to have that attitude and to respond to new music the way he did.
It's a refreshing thing. I mean, people look at from the outside, look at us and they say, "What's left to do?" But I don't think that thought is valid at all. It's never struck me. So when you've been asked that, you kind of go, but what you're really thinking is, what an odd question to ask. Because, I get really inspired by, similarly, like Graham Nash. If you look at someone like Picasso, who did so many fantastic things at the end of his life. And I mean, there are other examples of people, staying open, playful, and doing, tour de force creative things very late in their lives, and that's always an inspiration, and you aspire to keep that kind of attitude and be able to do it.
Yeah, I think that really comes across from Ahar, and a word, again, that I was listening to is dreams. You do dream, and I think that's really helpful to just keep that open mind, and this is possible. And because I'm representing, do you remember, I was going to ask you if you could go off for a holiday somewhere in the past, in a time, or maybe in the future, where would you guys go?
Not in our time. That's the point.
Yeah, just somewhere else. Just because your dream
some other time as well.
Yeah, anywhere. I just wondered. For me, I'd go back to the 1920s because I'm a bit of a flapper girl. Only for a week. I don't want to go there for too long, just to have a sample of the good things that were happening. I'm not really interested in the depression and the bad things that were happening, but the creativity that was happening.
Did you take a look at Women's Lib at that time, or...
Whatever was going on. Yeah. Maybe it's something for you to think about.
I go to the south of France every year, and you become very kind of aware of the cultural history of that place, and what a big role it has played over the last couple of centuries for artists coming down there. And it's almost an obvious thing to sort of wish to be there among, I guess around the 1900s. With kind of modernism taking shape, and so many, even like the first any time, from 1900 to 1930, I guess would be an interesting time to be.
We might bump into each other then. If
we might, if we're there the same week.
Yeah.
You'll be flapping and I'll be painting.
Yeah, there you go.
I'd probably go back to about 50,000 years
Neolithic,
and visit Kenya, and just to see if I could shake the hands of some of my ancestors who are about to leave the country and form the rest of the world's population.
Well, that is a random thought, Morten.
He's full of them, trust me.
But it is what sparks the creativity. It really has been a delight to talk to you both.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and a little dream come true for a little girl from Dorset. You were the first band that I ever went to see.
Oh,
You were.
really?
Yes, you were.
Hammersmith or where?
No, down in Bournemouth.
Bournemouth. I remember Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you remembered me, Max.
I remember.
coming up.
I remembered you. Let me rephrase that. Rewind. Let me take a little holiday back 2 minutes ago. I remember you. Bournemouth,
Bournemouth,
right?
Yeah, Bournemouth, that was it.
Right.
Yeah, it was a good memory for me because I've
Wearing
been given
1920s clothing. Yeah.
ish because it's always kind of been there. It's kind of been there. But I had to take photos for a friend who couldn't go to the concert, and I stood on the arms of the chairs on the front row in the encore and took a photo. And the house lights went up, and Morten, you very kindly came over and did a nice cheese for me.
Did I?
Yeah, you did.
What kind of cheese would
Wednesday
it be?
Dale?
Nice
Wensleydale, yeah.
smiley cheese. And good photo. And I
Good.
gave you a thumbs up, and you winked at me.
I'm sure it did.
But that's what it's all about, moments and memories. So thanks, guys.
And that's lasted you, what, 20...
Yeah. 10 years, he's going to say. No, yeah, 20.
When would that be, though? Bournemouth?
That was. It must have been 86.
86,
Yeah,
87.
yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause
Part of the first tour, then?
yeah, I was trying to think
Possibly.
when it was. And then I thought, oh, yeah, Fred's dad took us.
Maybe
We
not
couldn't
the-
drive.
Yeah.
It would have been.
I'm just trying to think what we did in the UK on the first. I can't remember.
It wasn't last week. You're not expected to remember. That is just brilliant.